Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another new edition of World Today, where we get you the latest news headlines and articles making the news around the world. And we're glad to be joined here today by Dr. Rami Ashour, International Relations and National Security Expert. Good afternoon, sir, and thank you for joining us. And we start off with daily news of Egypt. President al-Sisi received Djibouti President Gula. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi of Egypt receives on Monday President of Djibouti, Ismail Omar Gula. Bilateral talks between the two countries. The summit is due to be followed by a joint press conference to talk to the media. The relationship between Egypt and Djibouti is strong and historical. Actually, the summit was held today, this morning, and the press conference also. How do you see the importance of the visit of the President of Djibouti to Egypt?
The first of the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is very good in Africa to make an influence for foreign policy, Egyptian foreign policy in Africa. But Djibouti had influence in Africa. The state importance of state of Africa because of paying a military court on international relation to make an a military confederation of or for Arabian alliance in Yemen.
Right.
Okay. So Djibouti, one of the state of Nile Basin, but Djibouti make a frontation or a military frontation in Eastern Africa to make a confrontation from terrorism organization in Africa such as Boko Haram or Daesh, but Daesh is concertation in North Africa than Eastern.
Right. So, well, as you've just mentioned, Djibouti has a very strategic location on Bab el-Mandab Strait. How do you see the importance of for the national security of Egypt?
Djibouti is conferred on Bab el-Mandab, but the distance between Djibouti and Yemen is 9 kilometers far only. So any Egyptian statement or any Egyptian excellence in Djibouti make a new Egyptian policy, foreign policy in Eastern Africa to support the Egyptian policy to confrontation or terrorism, confrontation terrorism in Africa. Okay, such as the new policy in new Egyptian policy in Africa make assure that the alliance, African alliance, in towards to terrorism in Africa, such as Djibouti and Uganda. Yeah, the Uganda and Nile Basin others states.
Okay. Right. Also, a number of agreements and the memorandum of understanding were signed today during the summit talks and the press conference. How do you see the significance of these agreements?
So, Egyptian policy, foreign Egyptian policy in Africa depend on 3 factors. The factor of it step out the terrorism excellence in North Africa. Okay. The second, stamp out the terrorism in Eastern Africa through more than a state, Djibouti and Ethiopia. Ethiopia, then the Ethiopian government had made challenges with the relation with Saudi Arabia. Okay.
Right. And moving on to Egypt independent, Sinai St. Catherine hosts 826 tourists in Christmas Eve. Egypt's St. Catherine city hosted 826 tourists of different nationalities on Christmas Eve this year, despite temperatures dropping to -1 Celsius. The head of St. Catherine's local municipality unit said the tourists visited Christian sites and attended midnight mass at the St. Catherine Monastery, UNESCO World Heritage heritage site and one of the world's oldest functioning monasteries. The tourists also visited the tomb of Nabi Saleh and local Bedouin dwellings. According to Abdel Saud, the South Sinai St. Catherine city lies at the foot of Mount Sinai, known locally as Jabal Musa, and believed to be the site where the Prophet Moses received the Ten Commandments. How do you see the security situation in Egypt, and how do you see a lot of tourists are actually visiting Egypt this Christmas? How do you see this?
The economic system in Egypt is now bad. So Egypt in need to encouragement, investment, foreign investment in Egypt, and tourism in Egypt. So any proclamation on about terrorism situation is in favor of economic system, Egyptian economic system in Egypt. So we can encourage the tourists to visit Egypt to to make dollars or money to make any investment in Egypt to make of this position to achievement development, economic development in Egypt. Okay.
Right, and moving on to The Guardian, the headline reads, Sudan frees 20 opposition members after protest call. Sudanese opposition parties said Monday that Sudan has freed 20 political opponents detained since last month after they called for protests against rising fuel prices. Sudanese Congress Party spokesman said 16 members were freed on Sunday, but added that dozens of other figures, including the head of the party and his deputy, are still imprisoned. Another opposition group, the Future Forces for Change, announced that 4 of its members had also been released. To what extent the unstable political situation in Sudan impact the neighboring states?
Sudan is suffering from disturbance because of being divided state, and the south of Sudan is still depend on weapons, foreign weapons in South Sudan to make a disturbance with between Sudan and South Sudan, and this matter make badly impact on national security of Egypt. So Egypt can interfere, but interfere placement in Sudan to make non-proliferation of nuclear weapons or defense on national security.
Right, and moving on to the Daily Star, Putin Rouhani welcomed Aleppo victory. Iranian media reported that Iran's President Hassan Rouhani and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin welcomed the Syrian army's victory against the terrorists in Aleppo during a late-night phone call. Putin also welcomed the defeat of rebel forces in Syria's second city and said cooperation between Tehran and Moscow will continue. They said peace talks would take place in Kazakhstan without providing further details. In your opinion, what would be the impact of the army's victory on the security situation in Syria?
Syria crisis, I will talk about Syria crisis through 2 factors. The first one is the relationship between Russia and Iran. The relationship between Russia and Iran depends on national coordination in Syria, because of being Syria is delegate, only delegate for Russian influence in Middle East. So Bashar Assad system is, if Bashar Assad system will end, the United States of America will have a new influence in Middle East, make a front to Russian influence in this Middle East. So Russia not able to make a policy in Middle East depend on protect his national security.
Right, and moving on to the World Bulletin, the headline reads, Turkey asks US-led coalition for air support at Syria's Al-Bab. Turkey on Monday called on members of the U.S.-led coalition against Daesh to provide air support for Turkey-backed troops laying siege of the Syrian town of Al-Bab held by fighters from the group. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan's spokesman said the international coalition must carry out its duties regarding aerial support to the battle we are fighting in Al-Bab. Not giving the necessary support is unacceptable. Rebels supported by Turkish troops have laid siege to the town for weeks in the air freight shield operation launched by Turkey nearly 4 months ago to sweep the Sunni hardliners in Kurdish fighters from its Syrian border. How would you see the Turkish-Kurdish dispute, the current Turkish-Kurdish dispute?
Turkish dispute, the reason for making a Daesh operation in Turkey as a response on policy of Turkish in Syria. So through coordination between Turkish and Russia. So Turkish depend on Turkish in make front to Daesh operation in Syria or in Middle East.
Right. Moving on to the Global Post, Russia mourns its Black Sea plane crash victims. People are bringing flowers to the office of the Russian choir, whose members have died in a plane crash over the Black Sea as Russia holds a day of mourning. All 84 passengers and 8 crew on the Russian military's Tu-154 plane are believed dead after it crashed shortly after takeoff from the southern Russian city of Sochi. The passengers included dozens of singers in Russia's world-famous military choir, 9 Russian journalists and Russian doctor known for her work in war zones. What would be the consequences of that attack and its echo regionally and internationally?
Russia to look forward to make an effective policy in the Asia, or no, make in Asia to front the United States influence in Asia, through coordination with China and India. Today, China had proclaimed and making fighting competition with India to make a proclamation declare for United States. If United States make a proclamation in Asia, the China and India, with coordination in Russia, make alliance power to break power, to make an Russia to break power, to end the existence of United States in Asia.
Right, Dr. Rami Ashuri, international relations and national security expert. Many thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Dear viewers, with this we wrap up this edition of World Today. Many thanks for watching and stay tuned for the top stories coming up in a moment.